Hey friends, welcome to the Raising Boys and Girls podcast. I'm Sissy Goff.
And I'm David Thomas.
And I'm Melissa Trevathan.
And we're so glad you joined us for this conversation. Let's dive in.
Mary Spencer Veazey is a Georgia native known for infusing her writing with relatable and uproarious storytelling, coupled with profound truths about Jesus. She lives in Nashville, Tennessee with her cat Confetti and is the engagement minister for Daystar Counseling. Mary Spencer is a proud Auburn University and Belmont University graduate. We are thrilled to have our dear friend and coworker, Mary Spencer, on the podcast today.
This is so much fun for us to get to have this conversation because it's with a dear friend and colleague. We are so excited about having this conversation with you.
So proud of.
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
are. Yes, we are.
It's a hard thing to write a book.
It's hard. It's real hard, but fine. So much fun.
Yes.
Well, and being in your 20s is hard too, which is the other reason we're so grateful that you wrote this book, because just to bring clarity to that season when people are just asking questions about who am I and where do I belong and where's my place in the world. So we are all kinds of excited that Cul-de-sac Crossroads is out there. And will you just start out by talking a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, so I'm Mary Spencer. It's a double name, and I'm from South Georgia. Grew up in a small town, and I went to high school with 55 kids in my grade. So 55, really small high school. And then I thought it'd be really fun to move to Auburn, where I knew no one, and start over. And it wasn't quite as glamorous as I imagined it was going to be. Trying to make friends when I grew up with the same 55 kids in my grade my whole life. So went to Auburn, was the black sheep of my family. Everybody goes to UGA. And I said, I'm changing things up. Went to Auburn, loved it. And while I was there, I just felt like no one really prepared me for what was to come of making new friends, finding a church when I've gone to the same church my whole life, figuring out where I kind of belong and what I want to do the rest of my life, what to major in. So my senior year of college, I lived in a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house with 6 girls, which was really fun, as you can imagine, trying to get ready and all the things. And while I was living in that house with all the girls, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start writing some of these stories down of different experiences I've had while living in Auburn and trying to navigate all of this. So originally the book was called 22 and Not a Clue.
Right.
So good.
But then I changed the title because now I've got a little bit more of a clue, and that's just not as fun of a title. But yeah, I started writing those stories down. I've always loved to write. And as I've kind of gone through my 20s, I thought, I really think I want to put this together and help other people see that navigating your 20s and going into college doesn't have to be quite as hard as it feels. So that's kind of how it came to be.
So your vision for who's reading it is like what age through what age?
I would say 18 to 30.
Yes.
But I've had a lot of parents come to me and say, I can't wait to read it because I don't know what it feels like to be in your 20s anymore. I don't know what that's like. Yeah, being in a digital age and dating being different and finding friends and being so isolated. So that's kind of an audience that I didn't expect of parents to walk in. Yeah.
So parents could even buy one for their kids that are that age and one for themselves and read it alongside to understand more. I love that.
Yeah. And in the back of the book, I have discussion questions too to walk through, whether it's in a Bible study or with your family or whoever it is, kind of walk through, okay, what are the action steps I can take to find a church or to meet friends?
Good.
So, yeah.
Spencer, that's so good.
Thank you.
Well, we love the breakdown of the book. It was so fun to read through it, where you talk about whose you are, who you are, and what you are meant for. And it feels like you address everything imaginable for that age, from Jesus to comparison to boundaries to dating to singleness to finances. You have covered it all. What do you hope that readers will gain from the book in general?
Yeah, I really hope that they'll find hope in their 20s of, okay, I'm not in this alone, and I have people that are walking through in something similar as me. And it's been really interesting in my 20s. I really expected a lot of people I knew to walk away from the church after high school going into college, but I've really seen it be more after college going into my 20s. And I feel like there's a lot of misinformation about who God is, and there's all these things you see on TikTok and the internet about who God is. And I've wanted to be able to be a voice of, no, this is who I know God to be. And there's been a lot of really hard things in my life, but he's still really good and I still really love him. So I hope that the reader will see that even if they have church hurt, even if they have hard feelings against God because of something bad that happened in their lives, that he's still really good and he still really loves you. So I hope they'll take that away from the book.
Yes. And probably feel like you're like a big sister coming alongside.
Yeah. I think as I wrote the book, I realized really early on, probably when I was 18 or 19, I can be a dweller and I want to stop dwelling in things and be a doer and start doing things. So change the situations that I'm in.
Good.
So I think, especially my freshman year when I was trying to figure out what friends do I have? How do I even make friends? The first semester was so upset not having friends and kind of just dwelled in the sadness of not knowing anybody. And then my second semester, I was like, you know what? We've got to pick ourselves up by the bootstraps and do something about this. So I decided once a week I would go to lunch with someone I didn't know. And for 16 weeks, I did that. And I made all these amazing friends. I was in a couple of their weddings. I lived with the two of them my senior year of college. I hope that people look at it and go, okay, I can do something about the situations that I'm in that I don't like and change it for the better.
That's so good.
Yes. Okay, as a parenting podcast, we believe that young adulthood is not just tough on kids, it's hard on parents too.
Yeah.
And I think parents want to help, but they don't want to interfere.
Yeah.
And so what would you say that young adults need most from their parents in that season? Here's a pro tip for all the moms listening right now. Dads don't need another bathrobe, set of slippers, or neckties, or golf balls. This year, spring for something truly special, an Aura digital picture frame. Dads will love it, I promise you.
Wirecutter named Aura as their #1 digital photo frame, and for good reason. Not only is it beautiful and super easy to use, Aura is also the only digital photo frame with unlimited photo and video storage, so you can send endless photos to dads, grandparents, and siblings' frames. Plus, you can personalize and preload an Aura frame with a gift message and photos using the Aura app, making it perfect for long-distance giving.
I'm giving one to my dad and Connie's mom this year. I preloaded Lily's wedding photos, the boys' graduation from college, our trip to the beach.
I got one for the lake, and the boys get so excited when they see themselves pop up on the frame.
Save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames by using promo code boys and girls at checkout.
That's AURA frames.com, promo code boys and girls. This deal is exclusive to listeners, so get yours now in time for the holidays. Terms and conditions apply.
I would say to let your kid be who God created them to be and not force them into a box. Something that my parents did that was so amazing that I didn't realize in the moment is my freshman year of college. I could not figure out what to major in. I changed my major 4 times. I was all over the place. I finally decided on a major by printing out every single major and just marking through them. But my parents were never worried about me figuring it out. They were like, you're going to figure it out and you're going to be fine. But I had voices in my ear being like, you make really good grades. You should be a doctor or a lawyer. And that was never my passion. My parents never pushed a certain major on me or a certain career. And I'm so grateful that they let me be my own person and do what I wanted to do and not what they've done in the past or what they think would be best for me. They kind of let me figure that out for myself and my sister too. We have very different career paths, but are so happy in what we do. And I've seen a lot of my friends have parents say, you really should be a doctor, even though they didn't want to be, and go and do that. And now they're 27, 28, 30, and they don't love what they're doing. And they feel stuck and they don't feel like they know who they are anymore. So I would say let them figure out who they want to be and what they want to do with their lives and not what you think they should do, which is hard because you've grown up with them and seen what their giftings are.
Right.
But you just never know what's down deep inside until they kind of figure it out for themselves. So I would say that's a gift my parents gave me, is letting me figure it out for myself, even when I wanted them to say, here's the major you should do and get sick with it and keep moving. So I'm really grateful for that.
And trusting that God has the plan.
Right.
Even if you don't, and knows really what your kids need. I love that so much. My dad, I don't know if I've ever told you this, my dad used to always try to make me be in plays.
Oh, really?
He would say, you're so animated. You should be in plays. You should be in the theater. And the worst thing I could ever imagine was getting in front of people and having to do that. Yeah, being on stage. And I mean, I tried out for one thing one time and I'm just so embarrassed that I even did it. I can't believe I sang by myself in front of people. I still remember how red my face was.
Yeah.
But I think now part of what I do is that I speak in public.
Yeah, totally.
And use my facial expressions, hopefully to convey messages. And, even being in a counseling setting and trying to show warmth. And I think he was onto something.
Totally. Yeah.
But not onto who God had made me to be necessarily.
Not an actress.
Or what God had called me to be. So, So I do think it's, maybe you can express it one time, but then let go of it.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
I feel like I had to keep circling back. I'm not going to be a pleasant mother.
Yes.
Sorry, Dad.
No, I feel that.
Yeah. Okay, so I think one of the things that we end up talking to parents of young adults about sometimes is when they're watching their kids figure it out, which is so important, and they start to have a real concern.
Yeah.
What's the best way to step in besides we think they should all send a copy of your book to their kids?
Yes.
But what else? Like, how can they do it in a way that feels honoring to the grown-up child?
Yeah. It's hard because you want to go and step in and fix everything. But I always think about Emily P. Freeman talks about giving arrows instead of answers. And so not saying, okay, this is how we're going to fix this situation. Being there for them and surrounding them and providing different kind of ways for them to figure it out for themselves, whether it's suggesting going to counseling or helping them find mentors in their community that can surround them instead of it being you, because that's been so important to me. When I moved to Nashville, my mom had a friend that lived up here and she introduced me, and me and this 55-year-old woman would get lunch once a month, and she's become one of my dearest friends and helped me through a lot of different seasons. And my parents, of course, want to be there for me and help me figure out all these things. But if you don't let them figure it out for themselves, I feel like there's a lot of resentment that builds up, and then that creates such a division in your family. So I would say helping them figure it out in their own way, but not stepping in and giving them all the answers, because they've got to grow up and figure this out for themselves. They've got to find the solutions on their own. But it's hard. I feel like it depends on the concern too. I feel like I've seen a lot of people my age struggle with alcohol and drugs. And I used to work at an addiction treatment center, and I remember this one woman came in about my age, and she'd been struggling with drinking alcohol for a really long time, and she said that her dad eventually just cut her off and stopped giving her any kind of allowance, and she was so resentful of him and hated him. But she said, in reality, he saved my life by doing that for me, and I love him now so dearly. So even if there's kind of a division for a little bit, I feel like sometimes there can be such a reward in the long run of helping them become their own person, figure things out, and not feeding into bad habits. So, I would say that.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about if parents feel concerned about their kids spiritually.
Yeah.
I've sat with a lot of parents who have concerns in that space.
Yeah.
So thinking about this young adult season, if say their kids are doubting or questioning or just finding their own path in their faith journey, how do you feel like parents can support kids there?
Yeah, I feel like doubt's not always a bad thing. If we just blindly believed everything, then we would be believing so many things that are not good for us to believe. So if they have questions, if they're not sure, sometimes them searching for the answers on their own is a really good thing. I remember when I went off to Auburn, I had grown up in the church. I'd gone to the same church my whole life, but my parents really let me figure it out for myself and just went off to Auburn, and I went and tried a bunch of different churches, and I was like, what do I actually believe for myself? I don't know if I know. And I kind of went on this journey of figuring out who God was for who he says he is in the Bible instead of what I've learned all these years. So I feel like asking kids good questions about who your friends are in college, what things are you getting involved in, and if they are bringing up doubts that they have about their faith, let them have those doubts and ask questions that are not questions of judgment, but questions of just wondering where they're at and why do you believe what you believe, because everybody kind of has to figure it out for themselves, and that's what faith is. So I would say let them go off to school or go off to a new city and see if they can figure it out for themselves. I always think about the story of the prodigal son. He eventually returns. He comes back home, but he has to go on this journey that takes him down really, really low to get back to where he comes home. So I feel like that's hard, though, because you don't want to see your kid get to that point, but it can be such a reward when they come back and they believe that for themselves and not because of what you believe.
Yes, so true.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So thinking about these years of your life, if we just said post-college, just young adult, what are the 3 sentences you've needed to hear the most from the grown-ups and your parents?
I feel like they're pretty simple. I would say, I love you more than you could ever imagine. I'm so proud of you. And don't be afraid to do the hard thing, because there are so many different things that have happened in my 20s that I've wanted to say, oh, I'm too scared to go to that interview, or I'm too scared to leave my first job, or I'm too scared to go on that date. But you just have to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And when you have your parents or figures in your life helping you, encourage you in that space, I feel like it makes all the difference. And just being told that you're loved makes such a difference. Just being told that someone's so proud of you can change so much, because I feel like we don't encourage each other in that enough, or tell people that we love them enough. And so I would say those 3 things. Especially the past year, I feel like I've really struggled with doing the hard thing or doing the scary thing, writing a book and putting it out for everybody to see. That's really vulnerable as an Enneagram 8. I'm like, what am I doing? But just doing the hard thing anyway in your 20s pays off so long in the long run. So I would say those 3 things. Yeah.
One of our favorite chapters in the book is the chapter on grandmothers who pray.
Yes. It's one of my favorites too.
I love that you wrote that.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of grandparents who listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
And would love to just ask you first, just what encouragement would you give to grandmothers out there?
Yeah.
And what do you even believe that young adults want their grandparents to be praying for them?
Yeah. I feel so lucky to have known my grandparents so well. Grandparents are such a gift. They're such a wealth of information. I have to give a shout out to my grandmother. It's her birthday today.
Aww.
Happy birthday, Mimi, 81. But I would say I would encourage grandmothers to keep praying for your grandchild, to keep calling them even if they don't answer. I feel like during college, I probably wasn't the best person to call. My grandmother missed me a lot because I was out doing different things, but it meant so much that she kept checking in on me. And my grandmothers are all really good about sending me stuff in the mail. All of those kinds of encouragement, they'll never know how much that's meant to me over the years. Even if I haven't expressed it enough, it's been such a gift to have grandparents that really care about me and are cheering for me and fighting for me. And as I get older, I really appreciate what they say to me and have taught me. And when I'm talking about hard things in my 20s and they tell me a story about their 20s that I can relate to, I'm like, okay, this isn't just a me problem. This has happened for generations. So I so appreciate that. So I would say keep encouraging your grandchildren. The things to pray for, I would say, for their futures, for what's ahead, for what's unseen, for who they're going to marry one day, for the kids they're going to have one day, for their careers. I feel so lucky to work at Daystar and be in a faith-based space, but not a lot of my friends are in a space like that. And it's such an opportunity for your grandkids to go and be lights in all different kinds of corporate offices and around the country. So keep praying for the people that they interact with daily, because it could change things in an instant for somebody. So that's how I would encourage grandmothers. And I think something that I've seen over the past year, so I've started putting sticky notes on my wall of prayers that God's answered. I think it would be so cool if grandparents ask their grandkids, what can I be praying for? Put it on a wall and ask them later on how God's answered that prayer, because I don't think we acknowledge how God answers our prayers enough. And I think that could be such a cool way to connect with your grandkids.
Oh, I love that. I know. Okay, the subtitle of the book is Navigating Life's Twists and Turns in Your 20s with Courageous Clarity. I love that.
Thank you.
What do you believe parents can do throughout growing up, or if we're going to zero in on adolescence, to help that happen?
Yeah.
Help the process.
I think the best thing you can do is model the kind of life that you want them to live one day. So what I mean by that is I had a lot of friends that played travel ball growing up and would not get to go to church on Sundays for that reason. And I've seen a lot of those same friends not prioritize going to church in their 20s because that wasn't a priority as they were younger. And so I think it's really important to model the kind of life you want them to live one day. If you want them to be really involved in a church, be really involved in your church. Go all in. Show them why that matters. If you want them to have deep community, show them your deep community and why that matters. I think it's so important to showcase the kind of life that you want them to live one day, because I've learned a lot from my parents of the ways that they've lived. It's kind of how I've incorporated into my 20s. So I think it's really important to show them that you have to be in community, that you have to find really good friends, that you need to be involved in a church, that prayer matters, reading your Bible matters, because they're watching you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so true. Even when you think they're not.
Yep, 100%. Yes.
Okay, we like to end with something fun and food related.
Love it.
We've got a 2-part question for you.
Okay, bring it on.
Part 1 is queso or guac.
Okay.
Part 2 is what's your favorite taco?
Ooh, queso or guac. It's hard because if it's a really good homemade guac, I'm in. I am so in. But guac is not consistent enough for me to choose, so I have to go queso.
Okay.
And then my favorite taco. Taco Mama has a taco called Just As It's Served. Grilled shrimp, avocado, tomatoes. So good. And of course, as an Enneagram 8, Just As It's Served is my kind of taco.
So good.
So I would have to go with that. Anything shrimp taco related, I am there.
You're in.
Yes.
Mary Spencer, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for being with us.
So
Thank you
fun
for
to
this
be with
book.
you.
I mean, I really do think the 20s are a time that a lot of, I shouldn't say kids, when young grown-ups feel really lost.
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful that your voice gets to be one that's
Thank y'all.
being a light and helping lead them in this.
Thank y'all so much.
Really amazing big sister.
I'm trying.
Helping them along the way.
Thank y'all. Thanks for having me. I appreciate
it. David, what a team we have that we get to call friends who help make this podcast possible.
Amanda Young, our operations manager.
Chris Starrett, our engineer.
Our management team at H Squared.
We are thrilled to be a part of the That Sounds Fun network.
Our music was created by the insanely talented Dave Haywood of Lady A.
And if this podcast felt helpful to you, please consider subscribing, liking, sharing, all the things.
We are grateful for you and cheering you on always.